So the Simple Act is a series of small everyday actions that we invite people to do in order to stand with refugees, to engage more with refugee communities, to learn more about refugee experiences. The Moomins have already been doing all these acts. So, the simple acts are like meet your neighbor or go enjoy the outdoors, read a book and so on. And many of these things the Moomins were already doing. Refugee Week is the world's largest festival, celebrating the contributions, resilience and creativity of refugees. The Refugee Week and Moomin collaboration is inspired directly by the first book of Moomins, called The Moomins of the Great Flood.
An uprooted family in a troubled time anxiously searches for shelter. A father long gone, the mother and son hoping that someday they'll see him again.
Tove Jansson created this story of a mother and her son escaping the Great Flood, which was a metaphor for war, because it was written just as the Second World War was unfolding, and that story was the story of so many displaced people then and now. So the collaboration between Refugee Week and the Moomins is about looking at this history of the Moomins, the legacy of this work, and connecting it to the stories of displacement today. Counterpoints Arts works with artists from refugee and migrant communities, and in this particular instance, we have commissioned 4 artists to create their own interpretations of the Moomin Blue House.
To celebrate Moomins at 80, Woodland Tribe are building an adventure playground inspired by the Moomins. The sound of children hammering, the kind of chink, chink, chink of 10, 20, 30, 40 children all hammering away is a lovely sound. Are we all here to have fun? When we give the briefing to children and we say you can make whatever you want, their eyes light up, because it's that blank canvas, it's that freedom to make whatever they want, whether they're making things to go in the Moominhouse or whether they're making things to take home. Yeah, that is the freedom of creativity that every children loves to do. We say to parents, please supervise your children because you know them far better than we do. But we ask them not to hover over like a helicopter waiting for something to go wrong. We ask the parents to give children freedom to play, to explore, to learn from their mistakes. Occasionally they might hit their thumb. If they hit their thumb, we tell them to do this. That always makes it better and they can carry on hammering.
My name is Basel and I am a Palestinian refugee who born and grew up in Yarmouk refugee camp in South Damascus.
I didn't grow up with the Moomins, but when I knew about the story of the Great Flood and the Blue House, as a Palestinian, I related to it straight away, because what we living since 1948 is the big flood for us.
There, in a meadow, stands a house, tall as a tree, elegant and painted blue. Over time, this house becomes a refuge for other creatures, for all those seeking shelter. Some stay for a season, others forever.
As we grew up in exile, generation after generation, the idea of belonging is a big question in our lives. So the blue house is powerful as a symbol of home, safety and belonging. To me and to us as Palestinians, the tent represents exile and losing our home and waiting to return to it.
I'm trying to build a tent which is reflects the reality of the Palestinian in the past 76 years, but also is a dream.
One video that was the big inspiration for this work was of an old Palestinian woman in Gaza who had been forced to move again and again from tent to tent. And every time she moved, she took her plants with her. And when they asked her, why are you taking these plants around with you? Isn't it tiring? She said, we will plant wherever we go and we will rebuild whatever they destroyed. These words planted the seed of this installation. In all the hell she was living through, she was still dreaming of a life she wanted to live and of being free.
Tove Jansson created the first book, The Moments in the Great Flood, during the Finnish-Russian War. And that was her response to the horrors of that war. She needed to create a space where she could let her imagination fly, where she could imagine different possibilities. And in that act, she was, looking for ways to remain sane in the midst of the darkness, but also she was looking for more hopeful futures. And there's a direct link in my mind between her work and the work of Basel Zaraa, who's doing a very similar thing in relation to Palestine, his own experiences, because the tent he is building is exactly that. It is an act of coming to terms with the horrible reality that's unfolding in Palestine, but also it is his act of resistance.
As you enter from the outside, you see a refugee tent representing the shelters that Palestinians have been forced into generation after generation. And when you step inside, you go into the dream of a liberated Palestine and are invited to imagine a future where the apartheid wall and checkpoints are gone and Palestinians are back with their olive groves. I chose olive, orange and lemon trees because they are important symbols to us as Palestinians. They have witnessed the violence of the occupation, which has deliberately destroyed these trees to try to take away our ability to live on the land. And like us, the trees are also strong and steadfast with deep roots in the earth. There is a tree in Palestine that is thousands of years old. It existed long before the occupation and will be there long after it.
My name is Dana Olarescu. I'm a socially engaged artist originally from Romania, live in London. So I do a lot of work around social justice, environmental justice, and how these things intersect and how people are affected by what's happening in the world, particularly now, I think, with the rise of the far right. I think I'm working in Gloucester with Gloucester Guildhall, and we are working together to think about what the act of being hospitable means. We are running workshops in different locations in Gloucester with people who have been forcibly displaced to create a map of welcome. Gloucester has a very rich history of the docks. We will be building a raft together, which really builds on the Moomin history of building little boats, and is going to have a very almost Moomin design, sort of Moomin feel to it. And at the same time, it's going to have a very big sail with a quote from the Moomins that says, "You look as though you might be a relation." And this is the quote that's bringing us together. This is a quote with which we start every single workshop, which really invites people to look at people they're meeting for the first time, encountering for the third time perhaps, as a family member. What does it mean to be incredibly loveful, incredibly supportive of someone you don't know? And how can we enact this? And how can we turn it into a day-to-day habit? So we're going to be building this raft that's going to be in the docks for about a week, for Refugee Week. And then the raft will be turned into a huge table where we're going to have a feast. We're taking it, we'll be wheeling it down, hopefully in a wonderful procession, into the town square. And we'll be using it as a table to eat together, to share food together for as many people as would like to join us on the feast.
They travel through fearsome forests and murky swamps, through nights full of strange, foreboding sounds. Curious creatures cross their path. Dangers lurk in the dark.
Water is central, and water, I think, is central to the idea of the project. The last few years, we've seen this horrendously, a campaign targeted at people who are arriving on small boats, which are incredibly unsafe methods of transportation to arrive into this country. And so for us, it's about creating alternatives. How do we turn that into something else? What would be our ideal way of welcoming people when they come for the first time? So this idea of putting a raft, so almost creating a raft that's the most welcoming raft you've ever seen. It's not an object that puts people's lives in danger. It's actually an object that's inviting people in, and that's telling them, this is where you belong.
It resonates with everyone, the idea of a bird nest, so we thought that we would use that as a kind of a center point for our project, through which we can then talk about the issues about migration, about how to build a belonging, about the welcome.
As a migrant myself, it's good to connect and to use art as a medium of connection and community as well.
So we took a metaphor of a bird nest. I think with bird nests, that's so wonderful and enchanting structures that think about the migrants that come here from faraway countries, and they build these homes which are only temporary, and how much they invest in them, making them so beautiful.
As an architect, I'm not used to working with willow and petals and twigs, and I was having these conversations with Henna of why are we doing this, and she had this most perfect answer, is that in nature there is a poetry and a beauty and a potential for enchantment that is nowhere else. And this in relationship to the Moomins and to displacement and to, the sort of the capacity of nature to help you feel anchored and help you feel like you belong to a bigger world. This is your planet, your world, your soil, it has great power.
It's indeed very troubling times we are living in. I feel that, we've reached the point where the very democratic foundations, norms, values, institutions, international laws are now undermined and attacked often by the very people who are supposed to uphold them. It feels to me that we all have a very important role to play. We all need to be able to decide what our values are and to stand up for our values, to fight for our values, to learn from the Moomins and Tove Janssen's work.